afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to the City Club of Portland, Portland's own Citizens Forum. My name is Susan Hammer, and I am president of City Club. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you to turn off your cell phones and your pagers and other electronic noise-making devices. And before we begin our program, I'd like to give a few announcements about things that are going on at City Club. Next Friday's forum will be Connecting Portland to the Global Economy, Trade, Transportation, and the Port of Portland. And Bill Wyatt, Executive Director of the Port of Portland, will be our speaker. Our Citizens Read, our monthly book group, will be meeting in the City Club Forum on Commons on July 31st. And the book that has been chosen for this month is Craig Leslie's book, Storm Riders. Craig Leslie, as you know, is an Oregon author, and this is a novel based in Oregon. The book group is free, it's open to the public, and please call City Club to RSVP. Our citizen salon dinners are going very well. Many are sold out, but there are still some opportunities to go to a citizen salon. This is a good way to meet other people, to talk about the issues that affect us all the most, and to raise money for City Club. There are brochures in the back that describe the dinners, the provocateur guests who will be there, and the dates and times. Please pick up a brochure and attend. Details on these events and the many other events can be found on the City Club website, www.pdxcityclub.org. And while you're on the website, please look at information about membership. We'd like to invite all of you who are not members today to become members. There's information about our TV and radio broadcast schedule. And of course, there is the Citizens Blog, our online forum. You can listen to today's program online, or you can purchase audio CDs and videotapes of today's program. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome two new members to City Club. And if you would please stand when your name is called so that we can welcome you. Mary Hull Haballero. There she is. Welcome. And Susan Davis. Susan Davis, here she is. We are so fortunate in Portland to have great corporate citizens who help make these programs possible. Our quarterly sponsors are Kaiser Permanente and Stoll Reeves LLP. Would you please join me in thanking our corporate sponsors? Our program today is entitled Two Mayors, Two Visions, How Conversations Can Change Communities. Throughout the world right now, the most enlightened cities are visioning the future, from Vancouver, BC to Tel Aviv, from Portland to Hillsboro. We are all beneficiaries of planning that has been done in the past. I mean, we look to our parks, Waterfront Park, Forest Park. We look to our great transportation system, the MAX, the Transportation Mall. We look to our urban growth boundary, and we have much to be thankful for. Now it is this generation's turn to create a vision of the future. Today is an opportunity to think big. It's to think about what we value most about Portland, what changes in the demographics that we will need to be planning for in the future, and what changes we want to initiate, and what our neighbors to the west, Hillsboro, has envisioned for the future in this very fast-growing area. Our guests today on my immediate right are Mayor Tom Potter of Portland, Jensine Larson, who is on the visionPDX committee, Tom Hughes, who is the mayor of Hillsboro, and then on my far left, I guess they're on my right, on my far left is Sheila Martin, who is co-chair of the visionPDX committee and our moderator today. I'd like to introduce Sheila and then have her tell you more about the other folks that will be talking to you. Sheila Martin is the director of the Institute of Portland Metropolitan Studies at Portland State University. The Institute addresses the most pressing issues facing the metropolitan area and its communities. Dr. Martin is an economist with almost 20 years of experience in applied economic research, program management, policy research, and advocacy. Before coming to Portland, she served as Governor Gary Locke's economic policy advisor in Washington from 1999 to 2004. We're so fortunate to have Sheila Martin as part of the Portland community and as part of our panel today. Sheila?
Thank you, Susan. And thank all of you for being here on such a beautiful day. I wonder how many of you have ever heard the saying, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I also wonder how many of you actually believe it. If you're kind of skeptical, you might want to consider the source of those words of wisdom. They were spoken by Alan Kay, and he was an early computer pioneer. He uttered those words before he invented something called Smalltalk, which was the inspiration and the technical platform for the graphical user interface that we all use on our personal computers today. So clearly, Alan Kay knew that it is indeed possible to invent the future. Today, it's my pleasure to moderate a panel of contemporary pioneers, people who understand the importance of being deliberate, strategic, and visionary about the future of our communities. On our panel today, we have Mayor Tom Potter, who's asked a committee of volunteers to guide our community in creating a vision for the future of Portland. visionPDX, on which I serve, began its work last November and expects to deliver a vision document to the Portland City Council in the spring of 2007. We also have on our panel Mayor Tom Hughes from Hillsboro. Hillsboro is in its 7th year of implementing the vision that it created from 1997 to 2000. And although Mayor Hughes was not mayor during the time the vision was created, he was on the committee that created the vision and is now very important in implementing that vision. Finally, we have Jensine Larson, editor and publisher of World Pulse magazine and a member of the visionPDX committee. Jensine has been incredibly generous to our community with her time and talent. She's made significant contributions to the success of visionPDX. This is a great opportunity for us to learn from each other about what it means to be intentional about the future of our communities. Although Portland and Hillsboro are different in a lot of ways, we all struggle with the problems of prioritizing our scarce resources and providing basic services and making our communities better. Mayor Hughes and Mayor Potter have done their homework. They know that smart and successful communities all around the world are developing visions that guide those strategic decisions. So now it's my honor to introduce Mayor Tom Potter. Mayor Potter has served the city of Portland for 38 years as police chief, community leader, civil rights activist, and now as mayor. Appointed police chief in 1990 by Mayor Bud Clark, Mayor Potter successfully brought neighborhoods, police officers, and business communities together to solve common problems. As Portland's mayor, Tom Potter still believes that bringing citizens together to solve problems is a good idea, and so he's called on all of us to play a role in inventing the future of Portland. Please welcome Mayor Tom Potter.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, distinguished guests. We have amongst us elected officials and business people, nonprofits, Portland Development Commissioners. This really is, I think, reflects a lot of the people of Portland who are interested in the future of Portland. And that's my interest, is that keeping one foot here today and the other moving out towards our future. I appreciate coming back here. I was here 6 months ago to talk about the state of the city, and part of what I spoke about was my community vision project. I said then, and I believe it's just as much today, that this project will be the most important thing I do as mayor of Portland. I also said it would only be successful if the entire community joined me in owning both the process and the outcomes. That is also true today as it was in January. You're going to hear from my fellow mayor, Tom Hughes of Hillsboro, in a few minutes. Hillsboro completed its visioning in 2000, and he's going to tell you some of the outcomes that have occurred since then. Tom and his staff have really been very generous in their help with our visioning process, and I want to thank him publicly and his staff for their support and advice. Thank you, Tom. I'm here today to give you a progress report on visionPDX. Think of this as a midterm report card on what has happened over the last several months. For me, visioning is all about the community deciding how it wants to create what planners call the intentional city, a place that grows not only from opportunity, but organically from people's dreams and from what they are willing to do working with government to make those dreams happen. It's about creating a community-owned roadmap that will show us the way for the next 30 years. For starters, it's been a busy time for visionPDX. Here's what it looks like just by the numbers. We've spoken to, surveyed, stopped in the streets, and queried online more than 5,000 Portlanders to ask them 4 simple questions. What do they value about Portland and why? What changes would they like to see? What kind of city do they imagine in 20 years? And what are they willing to do to help make that city a reality? By the end of the summer, that 5,000 will have grown to 25,000. We have given grants to 29 community organizations whose innovative ideas promise to bring new, often unheard voices to this conversation. For instance, we've empowered 5th graders at Chapman Elementary School to talk to their families about a future these children have a very big interest in. They presented the results to City Council recently and lit up the room with their ideas and enthusiasm. One student, for instance, recommended that the city increase public transportation and bike lanes, set up volunteer groups to clean up waste in the parks, and improve our sports fields in Portland. We've held more than 80 events to gather information from diverse groups, from the Natural Step Network, which focused on sustainability, to the East Precinct Police Advisory Council. The council was a captive audience in that the commander, Mike Krebs' group, Mike is a member of the visioning committee, so he had a good audience. We've translated our surveys into 9 languages: Spanish, Russian, Arabic, Cambodian, Chinese, Lao, Vietnamese, Korean, and Somali. I've been told that some of the local pundits have had great fun with this, but I believe it's important to hear from Portlanders who haven't had a chance to be part of these kinds of community conversations. Our visionPDX committee of 48 volunteers has trained 30 Portlanders to lead discussions in their communities. People like Gary Marshke, who as a member of the Northeast Business Association recruits small business people to participate and has led discussion groups with high school sophomores throughout our city. But that's just PDX vision by the numbers. For me, the real story may better be described by telling you about a town hall meeting that happened last month in East Portland at the Immigrant and Refugee Consortium. An audience of more than 100 Somalis, Ghanaians, Sierra Leone's, Liberians, Vietnamese, Lao, Hmong, Ukrainians, Russians, Cambodian, and Cubans were listening to a visioning exercise similar to the one conducted all over Portland. 6 first-generation Americans were sitting at a table in front of the audience, discussing what they value about Portland. Translators were buzzing, the room was buzzing. Then slowly, someone got up from the audience, pulled a chair up to the table, and began to share what his values about Portland were. Then someone else from the audience came up and joined them, and then another. It was utterly spontaneous, And it was exciting to watch people suddenly decide that they wanted to be a part of this conversation about the community they had chosen to live in. My guess is that few of those folks belong to organizations such as the City Club. The City Club does so much to help shape our community and is so important to Portland's future. Part of what is exciting for me is that visionPDX is bringing new voices to the conversation while continuing to reach out to more established groups for their input and advice. My goal is that the same spirit of participation seeps into every part of our community. Between now and August, my hope is that it will be hard for you to avoid visionPDX. Walk around town and you will bump into the Innovation Vision Vessel, a sort of voting booth on steroids that is showing up all over our city. In fact, it's parked downstairs in the lobby of this hotel, and I would suggest that you use it on the way out, or at least take a look at it. It's a wonderfully designed vehicle to get information from a wide range of people because we can take it anywhere in our city. We have a guerrilla theater of sorts from the City Repair Project, a group that will be taking skits around Portland to encourage participation. You know, there's a group of people out there that just don't go to meetings, but they'll come to see a play or skit, and we draw people in from many different ways. They also, you may see them at an intersection in what they call their tea horse. It's a vehicle that's been fitted out as a tea house and is traveling everywhere to gather Portland's information. We have scavenger hunts where visionPDX surveys provide the clues. Our volunteers are canvassing on Mondays at the Selwood concerts. We've held 14 focus group meetings with the Alliance of Portland Business Neighborhoods, business associations, and 6 more with the Oregon Food Bank and others. We've even held meetings with our city employees to find out what their vision was for Portland. By fall, we will have a mountain of information. So what happens then? Well, working with the Portland State Research Lab, we start gleaning this information. We'll create categories of choices that Portlanders have coalesced around. In January, we'll hold a Vision Week where we will spend 7 days intensely surveying the community in coffee shops, theaters, bus stops, anywhere people gather, asking, what do you want on this list? What is most important to you? What is least important? How can you help? This was done in Bend recently and was very successful. It's been done in other cities, and soon you're going to hear Tom Hughes talk about Hillsboro. Finally, the choices made during Vision Week will be narrowed down and presented to the City Council next April. The Council will then start the work of creating a multi-year citywide strategic plan that aligns the Council's resources and bureaus with the visions of its residents. I know that for some, after they hear the concrete steps we're taking, think this is just a feel-good exercise. But others, including some very tough-minded folks, know better. For instance, there is an international coffee company. I can't say the name, but chances are you probably stopped by this morning for a mocha almond-flavored grande. They ask to see our research when we get a little further down the road because they know that you can sell more coffee when you understand the values and desires of the people that you're selling to. The city of Vancouver, British Columbia understood this well. They're on their 7th year of creating action steps for their community-based vision on everything from sustainability to education, drug addiction, soaring real estate prices, and economic development. I don't think it's a coincidence that Vancouver is sponsoring the 2010 Olympics, or that it is a prime destination for international conferences, or that it is growing while still protecting its environment, or that it is routinely recognized among some of the best cities in the world to live. The people that have made choices together, which allows them to work together and make these choices a reality, are occurring all over our country, including cities of San Diego and Chicago, Washington, D.C., Calgary. Since this work has started, I've had 2 questions asked repeatedly. First, why don't you just tell us what your vision is and be done with it? And second, why don't you just stick to worrying about providing basic services? I think those are fair questions, and I think they're easy to answer. First, the vision of no one individual is as powerful or as authentic as a vision shared by an entire community. My vision walks out the door with me on my last day in office. The community's vision endures and changes Portland for decades to come. And second, listening to people and helping them realize their needs and aspirations are the basic services of government. The difference with this kind of community governance is that government is doing things with its people rather than to them. I'm excited about what visionPDX is doing with Portlanders. It will help us plan for the growth and change that is inevitable as 1 million people move to Portland, the metropolitan area, and call it home. It will help us do that planning successfully by linking the choices we make today with the aspirations we all have for tomorrow. I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being concerned and interested in visioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Potter. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Mayor Tom Hughes. Mayor Hughes began his first term as mayor of Hillsboro in 2001 and was re-elected in 2004. But this isn't his first time in public office. Mayor Hughes has served Hillsboro on the City Council, the Planning and Zoning Hearings Board, and the Planning Commission. Mayor Hughes was born and raised in Hillsboro. He's a historian and an educator with a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Oregon, a master's degree in history from the University of Arizona, and a secondary teaching certificate from PSU. He's taught at Aloha High School for close to 30 years. Please welcome Mayor Tom Hughes.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. My wife kept asking me today as I came down here why I was so nervous. And she said, "You're not usually that nervous when you give a public address." And I said, well, it's not the public address. The last time I was at City Club, I heard them described as a group of urban liberals with good table manners. And I said, it's not the urban liberal part that makes me nervous, it's the good table manners. And I managed to make it through lunch without spilling anything on myself, so I think I'm okay on that. The other thing that sort of, I'd have to confess, made me a little bit nervous was that the last time I saw Mayor Potter give in a public performance, it was at the Roast Festival that the Portland School Foundation puts on, and I was a little afraid that some of that might spill over, but his kind words in his speech have kind of put me at ease about that. Other than that, it is relatively easy for me to come before any group of people and talk about my hometown because I have a native son's great pride in our community that I actually would have had probably even if we hadn't done the vision, but I think the vision process has simply intensified that. So let me, if I may, because some of you may not make it into my town very often. It's sort of the place you drive by on your way to Seaside. Maybe some of you remember your mom and dad or your grandma taking you out to pick strawberries. Some of those kinds of things are Hillsboro experiences that a lot of Portlanders have. We are the community just the other side of Beaverton, and we have grown from a relatively small farm community to a fairly large industrial complex. When I was a kid growing up, I have to tell you that Portland was a long-distance phone call. It was actually a 45-minute bus trip. Let me think. That hasn't actually changed all that much. But we felt very remote out there, and I recall as my freshman year at the University of Oregon when one of my dorm mates introduced me to a classmate of his from Cleveland High School. He said, "Tom is from Hillsboro," and this kid said, "Hillsboro, that's Nowheresville, man." Sort of a Kooky Burns sort of mentality that he had. And so I think that a lot of us from Hillsboro have gone through those experiences enough to sort of carry a chip on our shoulder sometimes. So I think that explains somehow the way we play, I think, regional politics and some of the other stuff. But there are a couple of things about Hillsboro there's a lot that's been going on in Hillsboro. As I say, today we're a city of 82,000 people, and if my building department is correct on their estimate of our building permits so far this year, growing well beyond that in the next year. We have this sort of friendly rivalry with Beaverton. Beaverton passed us last year as the fifth largest city in the state. We're now the sixth, but they did that by annexing about 2,500 people, and I'm guessing they won't be doing that anymore. And so consequently, we will be, I think we'll squirt ahead again for a little while. But Hillsboro has become a very interesting place. When I grew up, and the choices that faced the average person who left Hillsboro High School was, were you going to work at the cannery or were you going to work in the dog food plant? Because we were heavily into agriculture. And then all of a sudden the dog food plant and the cannery closed. And so the options that people looked at by the time I got on the city council in the mid-1970s, there was about one job in Hillsboro for every 3 people looking for work. And as a council, and this is sort of my first experience with sort of trying to develop a vision, we developed a vision that said, as part of our comprehensive planning, we developed a vision that said we would like to have 2 jobs in town for every 3 people looking for work. Today, as I say, we have a population, according to Portland State, of 82,000 people. Our police and fire department estimate that our daytime population is about 110,000. If you stand on any bridge in the Sunset Highway and watch the traffic flow, rush hour traffic in and out, it is just about balanced now. So I think that we've not only created 2 jobs for every 3 people in Hillsboro, but jobs for a whole lot of other people in the region also, including a whole bunch that live in the Pearl District that commute out every day to work in some of our factories. That growth has taken place essentially over the last 20 years. We've grown 160% in the last 20 years in population, and we've grown 60% in land area. And as you might imagine, that poses some challenges for a community in terms of how do you maintain a sense of community at a time where everything seems to be in turmoil, everybody seems to be a newcomer, and there aren't a lot of people left who have a lot of roots in the community. In addition to just the size of the growth, it has also been the diversity of the growth. As Mayor Potter alluded to the population of Portland, we've seen a similar population distribution in Hillsboro also. I always kid my friend Jim Iwasaki because when I graduated from high school in Hill High, our minority population consisted of the Iwasakis and the Hadas. There were a total of 4 of them, two in each family, in the whole school when I graduated in '61. Today, about 30% of our high school and 30% of our community are minorities. And of those, and of the population, about 25% are Latinos. So we have evolved into a community that is very, very diverse. The Latino population is the easiest one to identify. We also have large populations of East Asians, South Asians, and again, a lot of those attracted to Hillsboro by the high-tech community. So once again, how do you keep those people together in with some sense of unity? We have some things that are traditional in Hillsboro that I think we decided we could build on. One of those is a great deal of continuity in the government. I don't know how many of you know much about council manager forms of government, but in the state of Oregon now they're experiencing a wave of sort of stability, and the average city manager lasts about 7 years. In Hillsboro, we've had the council manager system since 1922, and we've had 5 managers. And so culture that was developed at a time when we were a very small community has carried forth into the staff today. that was a key element in terms of putting forward this visioning process. As I listened to Mayor Potter describe what Portland is going through now, it sort of took me back to when I was on the Vision Task Force, and we were doing many of the same kinds of things to try to reach as many members of the community as we could, because what we have benefited from in the past in Hillsboro were sporadic moments of individual brilliance where people or councils or even groups of people around the community could look towards the future and say, this is what we need to do. We need to build a water system that will accommodate 60 million gallons a day at a time when we're only using 3 million. And many of us sitting on the sidelines kind of went, why? And actually they were wrong, but right. They said, well, the food processing industry requires a lot of water, and as it grows, we'll need more water. Well, fortunately, so does the chip industry, and so water has been a real key element of that. But the question is, how can you be more intentional about that process? We went through a process very similar to what Mayor Potter has described. We appointed a vision task force, and in some respects, we worked on a parallel track. So there were moments when we went out to the community and said, what are your ideas? We brought those ideas back to the Vision Task Force. We worked them into the structure of the document, took that back out to the public, said, what do you think now? Brought those changes back. And so we bounced back and forth between the 25 or so members of the community that were appointed to look at the task, and the 1,500 members of the community that participated in the process. I would say that the first best decision we made, by the way, was hiring a consultant. We hired Barney and Worth, and they did an awesome job in terms of putting together this structure for us. So let me talk a little bit about what I think we've got. And first of all, just structurally, and I don't know how interested you are in structure, but we have six vision statements, and those drive a series of strategies, and each strategy drives a series of actions. So each action that we take linearly ties back into one of the vision statements. The vision statements, just for those of you who are curious, and I always have to have them written down because I forget one or two: strengthening, sustaining community, which is really our social networks, enhancing neighborhoods and districts, preserving the environment, creating economic opportunity, expanding education and cultural horizons, and promoting health and safety. Those were the vision statements or concepts that we put forward, and then around those we developed the strategies, and then around the strategies we developed the actions. There were really three things that came out of the process for us. People wanted to connect. They wanted to connect to each other, which meant we had to identify opportunities to create third places where they could do that. They wanted to connect with each other physically. They wanted neighborhoods to connect in a way that was safe and reasonable. And so we created a bike ped task force to create a plan for a network of paths in the community that would connect neighborhoods, and they wanted to connect with their government. And so we've created an opportunity to be more transparent as we go about our business in a number of things that we've done. They were also concerned about community involvement. They wanted opportunities for volunteerism. My experience is that when people work together, even people from diverse cultures, they begin to understand each other better, and a way to build the community is to work on common projects that are for the good of the community, and before long everybody sees themselves as belonging to the community rather as to a particular group. They also wanted community identity. I got to tell you, that's a problem in Hillsboro. We have 4 different post offices that deliver mail to Hillsboro. So we have residents of Hillsboro who think they're citizens of Portland. We have residents of Hillsboro who think that they're in Beaverton and Aloha, and some who are in Hillsboro. I noticed on the list the other day that the Oregonian mayors do this. I immediately went to the list of the 50 top publicly held companies in Oregon and looked at how many of them were in Hillsboro. Mayor Potter's got 17 of them in Portland. They're clearly number one. Hillsboro and Beaverton had 5 each. So we're tied for second. Except that when I looked more closely at Beaverton, 2 of Beaverton's are in Washington County, clearly not interested in being in Beaverton, unfortunately, at the moment. And And two of them, Planar and Cascade Microsystems, are actually in Hillsboro but have Beaverton addresses. So that community identity thing is a real problem. Let me just real briefly go over some of the projects that we brought forward and explain in a little bit. The Bike Ped Task Force we talked about, we're putting together an Arts Commission, a Landmarks Commission. The other thing that I should mention is that this is not a city effort, this is a community effort. So we have over 20 partners, some of whom take lead action on a particular opportunity. And so the Chamber of Commerce, for example, created a 3-on-3 basketball tournament that's held every summer because the people said they wanted another athletic activity in the community. The Essential Healthcare System, which Quality Hospital created, it was part of the visioning process. An online symposium on how to bridge the digital divide, which Intel has sponsored. Parks Master Plan, Community Garden Project. The Civic Center, which is at the heart of downtown Hillsboro now, was not a creation of the vision, but it certainly was affected by the vision because we knew we wanted to build a city hall. And this is a good example of how your vision actually works. We were building a city hall, and we decided, because of what we were told by the community, that we wanted to have a plaza where people could come together. We wanted to have meeting space, and we wanted to have it had to be environmentally sound. So as we were designing the plaza, we discovered that we were pretty long on money. Short on money and long on expense. We got to cutting expenses, and one of the places we looked at was the plaza. And one of our committee members said, "Hey, the people in the vision told us they wanted a plaza. They didn't tell us they wanted a city hall. So if we cut money, we should cut money out of City Hall and leave the plaza as it is," and that was the decision that we made. Daily in Hillsboro, we make those decisions based on the vision. And the other thing I would say is the vitality of the vision. It has not remained a stale document. And part of that is because we have a vision implementation committee that sees to, that has all of the lead partners involved. They question each other back and forth. How you coming on your part of the vision? Is there any way we can help you with it? And that keeps them engaged and keeps them involved, and it keeps it alive. And as Mayor Potter said, when I'm gone, which I'm about to be, the vision will go on for at least the life of the vision. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Hughes. Our last panelist is Jensine Larson. Ms. Larson is a visionPDX member and Portland-based founder and CEO of World Pulse magazine, a media source which covers world issues from a woman's angle. She was inspired to start World Pulse at age 28 after working for many years, I don't know how many years that could have been at 28, as a freelance journalist reporting on indigenous movements and ethnic cleansing in South America and Southeast Asia. Today, Jensine tours globally and nationally, giving inspirational keynotes, current affairs lectures, and classroom talks on the rising pulse of women and youth transforming our world. She's passionate about Portland, and as she builds World Pulse into a global multimedia company, she's committed that World Pulse remain based in Portland and engage with the local community. Please welcome Jensine Larson.
Thank you, Sheila. So as soon as I saw the announcement for the Vision Committee, I knew immediately that I wanted to apply. And I wanted to apply because my deepest core commitment is to listen to the visions and the solutions of women and children around the world. And I wanted to do this in my local community, in a city that I love, and a city that I feel so committed to. I wanted to do this as an editor, and not as an editor, but really as a citizen of Portland. And sure, I had this little voice inside that said, Jensine, how are you humanly going to fit this into your life right now? But I brushed that aside because this was important to me. I have found that as I travel around the world, that everyone has a vision. And whether I am talking to women who are Afro-Colombian living in the midst of a war zone, who are mothers in Rwanda or Burmese refugees, They have a fierce and a clear vision for their community. They're aching for that space to be heard, and then once they're heard, it benefits everyone. So I had a very deep sense that Portlanders had visions that weren't being tapped into and were just waiting to be heard, and that they just needed to be asked. So I was very excited that the space was going to be created for us to listen. And more importantly, to me, this visioning process really represented a very real opportunity for Portland to be on the forefront. And not just on the forefront nationally, but on the forefront globally as well. This is truly our opportunity to be exceptional. And I can tell you right now that wherever I do go, people have this vague, this positive association with Portland of our innovativeness. The eyes of the world very much are on Portland right now. They're watching our next move, and they're looking to us as a model. And as I go out, I do consider myself a fanatical Portland ambassador, but there are some things that are holding me back. And there's things I'm not especially proud of about our city. For example, how little children's voices are listened to and taken seriously, and how significant the divides are, how separate our communities racially and ethnically are. And I'm not comfortable with that, so that motivated me to get active. On the first day that the whole committee came together was very moving. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I will never forget that day. One by one, every Vision Committee member got up, and they truly were so diverse and from all walks of life. There were dance instructors, directors of banks, there were students, there were pastors, scientists, nonprofit leaders, there were landscape architects. And as each person got up and spoke, they really spoke to how honored they were to have been selected, and they realized what a responsibility it was that they were carrying. So in the room at that time, there was a real sense that, and there still continues to be as we meet, that this is a historic initiative and it will impact many lives. After that first day, then we broke down into 6 different subcommittees, working groups. And that's when the real reality hit us, that we were actually going to have to work very hard. As we got our mandate, we realized that many other cities who are doing this actually have multi-million-dollar budgets. We had a fraction of that, and so we were really going to have to inspire the community in a big way to get them to help us to do what we were set out to do. So after we definitely had some shock. It took a little while to get started, and after that, we really started throwing ourselves in, and some of my colleagues are actually spending about a day a week on this process. Another thing that I've noticed that is very important to us, and we talk about it a lot, is that we are not the mayor's committee. We are a committee of the community, and we are accountable to the community. So no disrespect, Tom Potter, but your vision gets thrown in there with the rest of them. But I know I speak on behalf of the committee that we're very grateful for your leadership. I'm on the communications subcommittee, and I am point person for a public service announcement. It's a video. We decided that what we were going to do was start with the children and do just a professional but a beautiful video, collect children from around the city, have them speak about their vision, but also what they were going to do to see their vision through. So we managed to wrestle together some professional cinematographers, professional lighting, getting the space. We put out a call for children, and within about a week, we had 30 kids that were ready to get out in front of the camera. We've shot for about 2 days, 8 hours a day, and it was very quite intensive. We met each child. We had to make them feel very special. We told them about the visioning process and why their voice was so important. And I led them in front of the camera, got them comfortable, and told each child, got down on my knees and said, you want to look right here at this spot in the camera, because all of Portland is going to be watching you. It's going to look just like you're looking right at them. And it's really important because you're going to inspire other kids, but it's also really important because grown-ups sometimes they forget how to vision. And their eyes would light up and they just went for it. And we had to go through some different layers to get into the core vision, but they just let it rip, whether it was, my vision is Portland has the best zoo concerts in the world, whatever it was. But it was an important day for the kids. It was an important day for the parents. I have to say, I did feel like I was in a deodorant commercial of like, never let them see you sweat, because there's a revolving door of the kids coming in and out and saying, next. So it was a lot of work, but a lot of fun. And then I have to say, what was impressed me the most so far of what we've done is really the work of the Grants Committee. I know that within 8 weeks after they made their announcement, they got deluged with over 143 applications, and really proved to us that there were groups in the city who were just waiting to be asked. I know that it was very painstaking for our grants committee. They had to work day and night, and they narrowed it down to 29 grants. I was just looking over the midterm reports of the grants, and what I saw was a very similar theme throughout them, and that was whether it was the Native American Youth Association or the African American Health Coalition, or whether they were working with homeless groups, most of those groups, as the leaders brought in the questions, met a lot of resistance. There was a lot of distrust of the city government. But once they got in, a lot of transformational things started to happen. In the homeless group, for example, real conversations emerged about race between the diverse members there. I know that day laborers who have been out on the corners in Portland are meeting now in these forums with the businesses on those corners to devise visions for how to better accommodate that situation. And I know that the Native American Youth Association, when they appointed those youth to do the interviews, they also asked elders to be mentors to those youth. And in their report, they said that it has really breathed life into the connection between the elders and the youth. So these grants have really been breaking through a lot of the distrust, and I just imagine what it would have been like had we been able to fund more. So how do you get involved? Now is the time to get involved, and people throughout the city are giving their visions, so don't miss the boat. I challenge each and every one of you, if you do care about the city, the future of our city, give us your vision. Inspire at least 10 people that you know. When I was down on my knees with the kids doing this video, I realized how important it was to them, and perhaps most of all, because they will be inheriting this city. You can go to our website, it's visionPDX.org. There is the Vision Vessel, as Mayor Tom Potter spoke of. It's in the lobby. You can go down there and check it out, or at visionvessel.org and find out where it's going to be. We have, on Monday, there's a Selwood concert series, and there'll be people tabling there. Tonight and tomorrow night, there's a Broad Arts theater presentation. There's a Mississippi Street Fair that is happening on is it? Okay. There's a whole a list of the events that are happening out there on the table. I had some of these, but I have the wrong paper here. And then we're really working up for August 1st, which is a national night out, and there will be probably about 10,000 people coming out from all over the city to participate in this activity. There will be temporary tattoos and artworks for the kids. As we spoke of, there's an action plan that will be delivered to the city in the spring. And this is a vision that is going to give us clarity, it's going to give us focus, it will give us direction every day forward, next year and the year after that. And then we as Portlanders can really say with confidence that we listened, we gave everyone the opportunity, and that this is the city's vision. So this is our opportunity to create the city of our dreams. So what is your vision? Thank you.
I'd like to thank the members of our panel today. Our first question will be asked by our board host, Don Williams. Don is president-elect of the City Club of Portland. He's chief operating officer of the law firm Schwabe, Williamson and Wyatt. He's been a City Club member since 1972, has served on the board twice and on the research committee twice. Don.
You have educated and enlightened us about the visioning process in your cities, and many citizens gave you their opinions and I'm sure offered constructive criticism as well. I'd like to turn the tables for a minute and give you a turn. The City Club in its 90th year is going through its own visioning process of sorts. As you probably know, our mission is to inform on public matters and arouse the obligations of citizenship in our members and the community. So tell us what role City Club can play in helping you to achieve the goals of your vision. When have we helped? How have we fallen short? What else can a group of urban liberals with good table manners do to help in achieving the goals? And Mayor Hughes, many of your residents work and play in Portland, so we're certainly interested in your opinions too.
Well, I think that you do a great deal, and I think that there's a surprising, as I had looked around the room today, and I'm not egotistical enough to assume that I drug them all in, but I noticed that there's a number of folks from Washington County that come in on a regular basis, I think, and participate in this, and as well as people who work here and live out in Washington County. I think that you have done a good job in the last few years, and I would encourage you to continue looking at region-wide problems and region-wide issues. I think over the years, because of your nature, there's been a tendency to be a little Portland-centric. But in recent years, I've noticed that you've reached out to the surrounding communities and to the surrounding areas, and I think that's a healthy trend, and you should continue that.
Well, as I spoke of, there's a lot of initiatives happening with our committees, and we have a great need for resources from the communities. If you feel like you can donate or give time or give services, please contact us. I think that would be an incredible help, but most importantly, do give us your visions and inspire others to do so.
I'm going to stand up here because I can't see the crowd over here from where I'm sitting. But, you know, I appreciate so much what the City Club does. I would like to see the City Club expand its membership to include people whose primary language is not English. More diversity in the City Club, more outreach. I would like to see the City Club reach out into communities that normally are not touched either by the City of Portland or by the City Club. You folks have a tremendous influence in this city. When I looked at the Portland Development Commission, one of my main books, or I should say reports I used, was the City Club report on PDC. It really gave us some good insights into what to do to begin to move PDC in the right direction. So you folks do many things right. I would like to see it be more inclusive and not just refer to the citizens of Portland, but to all Portlanders who aren't citizens. We have thousands of people living here who are refugees from other countries, and to engage them in these conversations as people who have made their home here, I think is important as well.
Thank you very much. We have time, I think, probably for one question. A privilege of membership in City Club is to ask a question of our panel members. Question should be 30 seconds or less and end with a question mark. Tom.
Thank you all three for coming. Jane Jacobs said that cities succeed by creating an environment where thousands of private visions can come true, including the visions of small business people. Hillsboro's success has come in part from being business friendly. Portland has a reputation for being hostile to business. Mayor Potter, can Portland's vision work without addressing that reputation? And Mayor Hughes, do you see any real difference between the two cities' attitude towards business?
You want to go? It's up to you.
Mayor Hughes offered that I'd go first. I guess he thought I had the easier question. But I don't think Portland is hostile to business, but I'll tell you this, is that when I look to attract businesses to Portland, I look for businesses that look at their job as not just about making money, but also being aware of the social context of where their workers live to ensure that they've got family wage jobs and health benefits. I look to see companies that have a concern for the environment. It's no coincidence that the city of Portland has more LEED certified buildings than any other city in the United States. We are conscious of our environment. I want our businesses to be that way. So I don't think it's about being unfriendly, but I think that every city is known for something, and I want our businesses, and many of our businesses are known for not only the bottom line, but a social responsibility and an environmental responsibility as well.
I don't do business in Portland, so I don't have a real strong perception of Portland's, how easy it is to do business in Portland as a reality. I hear things periodically, but I tend to discount most of that. I think what has happened in Hillsboro is that we have the advantage of that continuity that I talked about before. So we established a culture in our planning department, building department, and where we issue permits that goes back to when, we had like 2 builders in town and they knew everybody on a first name basis and came in and said, yeah, can I get my permit now, please? And so that kind of customer service culture has really stayed with the city in a way that it's hard to build once it's gone, and we've been able to retain it because of continuity, and I think because the whole planning process, which involves dealing with businesses, has been such an important part. And we have a city manager who started his career 30 years ago with the city of Hillsboro as a planning director. Our deputy city manager, who's just retiring, started as his replacement when he moved up to assistant city manager. So we have a lot of people in administration who worry about the whole planning process and how it works and how it functions. And we just learned as we were dealing with Intel and some of the bigger companies that came in early on that user-friendly approach actually meant you didn't have to give them, in some cases, you didn't have to give them tax abatements or offer to spend money up front, because if you could make their life easier and faster, then that worked really well. And that's just been a culture that we've enforced. And we're very proud of the fact that when D1D was built, which is the largest and most sophisticated chip plant in the world, we did 25,000 inspections on that and never interfered with their construction schedule or and they finished ahead of schedule and under budget. Those are the kinds of things that help you build trust in the community, in the high-tech community in particular. But I would have to say that I think we're benefited from the fact that we have a unitary, one single place where everybody comes, and that's partly to do with our form of government too. So,
Thank you.
Okay. If you'd like to continue the conversation about this topic, please go to our website and join the Citizens blog. I would like to thank Mayor Potter, Mayor Hughes, Sheila Martin, and Jensine Larson for their participation today, for helping us think about the future, and for helping us think about how City Club of Portland can be part of that. Thank you, members and guests, for your participation, and thank you to our radio and TV audience for your interest in the programs of the City Club of Portland. If you'd like to continue the conversation, as I said, please go to our website, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.